At long last, the Galion TS P75 Tube preamp is here. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why would anyone want to strangle me over a preamp? Simple. The TS P75, which I'll refer to as P75 from now on, doesn't have XLR. Yep, you heard right. With a name like TS P75 and a family resemblance to the A75 power amp, which has XLR, it's only natural to expect the same. So why? It all comes down to cost. Now, if I wanted to build a tube preamp worthy of the TS A75 and keep the price tag in the same neighborhood, I have to make some tough calls. Should I prioritize maximum performance or opt for XLR, risking either compromising the sound or increasing the price? Now, I chose performance because we are audiophiles or music lovers. Now, before we talk about the TS P75, okay, let's address the age-old question. Do you even need a preamp? And the answer is, in my experience, if it only improves your system. Well, duh. If you have a phono stage, CD player, and other sources, yes, you need one out of necessity. But if you got your TS A75, now hooked directly to a DAC, like a Guster, which doubles as a preamp, and you're already over the moon, then why bother with a preamp? Now, as I said, the answer from me is straightforward. You get a preamp because you're looking to elevate your system's performance. It's not more complicated than that. Every time you introduce a new component, be it a new tube, a new speaker, or a new cable, you change the sound of your system. Sometimes the change is, oh my God! Well, at other times, it has no impact, okay? So consider this. How do you know if the current matching of your DAC and your amp without the preamp allows you to experience the full width of the soundstage your amp is capable of? How do you know? If you try a preamp and your sound doesn't get better, okay, does that mean preamps are pointless for you? Not at all. It just means that that particular preamp didn't do your system any favors. Remember, preamps are like pizza toppings. Not all are created equal and not every combo works for everyone. Okay, maybe that's a bad analogy. So let me share a story, okay? In my setup, I run a Matrix X-sabre3 DAC, good DAC, connected directly to the A75. Okay, so the DAC doubles as a preamp. The result, yeah, great sound. However, when I add a budget tube preamp between the DAC and the A75, the soundstage actually shrinks by 10% and the bass loses some of its punch. If that was my only preamp experience, I'll probably think, yeah, preamp are just expensive paperweights. Keep in mind that my Matrix DAC is $3,500. So it features an excellent preamp section. So now, when you add a TS P75 to the A75 with the same matrix DAC, the mid-range becomes warmer and more inviting. So in this case, adding a preamp makes sense, assuming a richer mid-range is your thing. So the real takeaway, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to the do I need the preamp. It's all about synergy with your specific system. The right preamp, man, it can open up the soundstage, add air and depth, tightens the bass, and smooth out the mid-range. So it's a lot more than just a fancy volume knob. Now here's the part you really want to strangle me. The only way to know for sure is to actually try it in your system. Sorry, man, but there's no shortcut to audio nirvana. Okay, so now let's get back to the TS P75 Tube preamp. Okay, so as many of you already know, the TS A75, that's the amplifier, has been racking up glowing reviews from not only actual happy owners, go check my website with all the glowing reviews, but also every YouTuber. Man, I spend so much money bribing those YouTubers, man. My wallet is on life support. Now, how else do you explain all those 5-star YouTube reviews? You know, some even called Amplifier of the Year. And if you thought I was actually serious about the bribery, we might need to have a chat about a bridge I have for sale. So one customer, man, he was so thrilled, he even sent me a bottle of booze as a thank you for bringing the TS A75 to market. Now others have told me it stands toe-to-toe with their high-end monoblocks. And I think that's all thanks to the unique sonic character I've baked into the A75. You see, a massive soundstage, deep and punchy bass, sparkling detail, and clarity that punches way above its price. But here's the catch. The magic of the A75, that amplifier, is only as good as the preamp you pair it with. You need a good preamp to unlock its full potential. And that's my elevator pitch for the TS P75. So remember that story I shared about pairing a bargain preamp with the TS A75, okay? So with some of those budget models, the soundstage shrink and the bass loses its punch. Yeah, definitely not what you want. However, when I pair the Matrix DAC and the TS A75 with high-end preamps, like in the $3,000, $4,000 range, yeah, it was different. I gained either in soundstage, I gained either in air, bass, or some other improvement. It could be either one of them. So that brings me to the real challenge. Okay, building a preamp that can keep pace with the TS A75 without breaking the bank. Yeah, you know, I don't want to build a $4,000 preamp. Hitting that level of performance, like high-end performance, would be easy. However, my mission is to deliver a preamp price close to the TS A75, $1,500, that can still compete with those $4,000 heavyweight, just like the A75 can with high-end power amps. A75 against a $3,000 amp, no problem. So to illustrate how tough it is, the designer behind the TS A75, he sent me several of his preamp prototype. Okay, those preamp are okay, they're good, but you know, they don't come close to what my $3,000, $4,000 preamps can do, my own reference preamps. So in the end, those prototype, man, I throw them in the trash. Man, my wallet is still recovering from that. But after what the TS A75 has accomplished, there's no way I'm just going to bring a preamp that's just okay to the market, right? I'm grateful for the TS A75, but I also hate that it has set the bar so high for my affordable gear. So after much deliberation and a few sleepless nights, I reached a conclusion. The only way to deliver true high-end performance at a wallet-friendly price was to embrace tubes. So if you know the Galion TS120 SE and 34, you already know that they're made by Deutsche Audio, the tube maestros. Although I've been in business with Deutsche for what, 3-4 years, we only collaborated on one project. Well, the 120 and TS34 is basically one project. So Mr. Liu from Deutsche took on the challenge of designing an affordable tube preamp that could rival high-end preamps. And let's just say it was anything but a stroll in the park, okay? We cycled through a whole circus of prototypes. The first version, it's a gadget lover's fantasy, okay? It had tone control, capacity selector, so you can toggle between different capacitors. It had clever HT bypass that can automatically kick in and when the preamp was off. So what happens is that it turns off all the tubes and it allows you to bypass the tube section so you can use it with your home theater. So that's pretty cool, right? But then reality hit, and my accountant. The problem is that all those fancy features sent costs soaring, man. Worse, I realized the bells and whistles were affecting fidelity. So if I wanted to compete with the high-end crowd, I had to squeeze every last drop of performance out of the TS P75. So the final TS P75 is all business, man. No tone control, no HT bypass, no capacitor selector. Just a clean, straightforward design, laser focus on fidelity. So sometimes less truly is more. So one thing I've always been adamant about is the power supply. It's the foundation of any great amplifier. So I told Deutsche, man, forget your usual transformer and instead use a different supplier that I will introduce you. I found a supplier that specialized in building transformer, and they had one made for the TS P75. What truly sets the TS P75 apart? Like every piece of Galion gear, I personally voiced it. Okay, for the uninitiated, Voicing means spending countless hours swapping and tweaking components, sometimes even adding entire new ones to the circuit until the sound matched my standard. So take the clarity capacitors for example. I ordered like 3 or 4 variants from Clarity company, and I tested each one in the P75 to choose the best performer. Ironically, one of the best clarity caps for this TS P75 circuit turns out to be the same one used by the Doge A. Man, I wasted so much money and time auditioning the rest. But the TS P75 doesn't stop there. You'll also find premium capacitors from Silverline, they're made in France, and Jupiter, which are made in USA, not just for show, but carefully selected for their specific sonic contribution. Every component was chosen with a clear purpose. For instance, I wanted to give the mid-range a little bit more body, since the TS A75 mid-range, while pleasant, could use a bit more richness. So to tackle this, I added a Bumblebee Jupiter capacitor to the signal path. With this, the vocal become more present, smoother, and I just touch more romantic. But getting there wasn't exactly easy. I experimented with 8 different Bumblebee capacitors. Some of them made of tin, some of them made of aluminum, tested values from 0.01, 0.022, 0.33, and so forth. So I also tried other Jupiter capacitors in it, like Vitamin Q, Vintage Tone, Solen's most expensive Teflon capacitors in the signal chain. And all that just to pursuit of the sound. So frequently I would spend 12 hours a day for weeks, every day, just to zone in on one single capacitor for the sound. And that was just only one. Imagine all the other rest. So a great deal of love was put into making this a preamp. I know that sounds cheesy, but true. You don't need to own the A75 amplifier to benefit from the rewards of the Jupiter Bumblebee capacitor. Because the P75 fuller mid-range will breathe new life into any amplifier. Add extra body and air to your system. The added body to the mid-range, thanks to the Bumblebee capacitor, might appeal especially to people with Class D amps, because Class D amps can lack a bit of warmth, and this will give that warmth. Now, another thing I did to help me voicing was I soldered sockets on the board everywhere. So it allowed me to swap components and experiment on things like tube biasing. Okay, would the preamp sound better if I change this resistor and increase the tube bias? What about tweaking the feedback? And after, I'm telling you, a gazillion hours, I voiced the P75 with just enough smoothness to tame any harshness with the A75, which can happen in certain setup. And let's be honest, man, who doesn't appreciate a little extra smoothness? And this quality will benefit any amp you pair it with. Normally, smoothing out the top end means sacrificing some air and soundstage. But that's where the Bumblebee and Clarity capacitor work their magic. They retain their openness and soundstage. No equalizer can pull off the same trick, which is why, you know what, I invested so much money in premium capacitors. Man, if you look at my collection, you think that I'm running an underground exotic capacitor store on the side. So there's also a lot more that went into voicing this preamp. For instance, the original prototype has a touch of glare that drove me up the wall. Yes, it was extremely detailed, but after a while, that glare became annoying. And guess what was the problem? It was the silver-coated internal cables, and I had to change it. So even the cable wiring inside had to be carefully chosen to get the sound just right. So when it came to the tubes, I landed on the PSVANE 1287 after I auditioned a lot of them. They deliver very good performance for the price. Of course, you can always put in some better ones for a different flavor. So who is the TS P75 for? If you're looking for a preamp that is neither too clinical nor too neutral, but rather has a bit of bloom, then this is for you. So how does stereophile define bloom? Let me quote: a quality of expansive richness and warmth like the live body sound of a cello. So this is thanks to the Bumblebee capacitor. And I know every company is chasing after that neutral sound now because from a marketing point of view, that is what sells today. However, for me, sometimes it takes a bit away from the soul of the music if it's too neutral. Now that's just my opinion. If you agree, put it in the comments. If you don't agree, put it in the comments, okay? Are you actually looking for the ultimate neutral sounding amp, preamp? So next, I asked the designer, Mr. Liu, a while ago, why do you have so many capacitors in your preamp? It looks cool, but man, my finance minister isn't too happy with it. Each of these are 3.3 UF. They're not cheap. And 3 of them, when they parallel together, is 10 UF. He told me that increases the chance of the TS P75 being compatible with more power amps out there. And that's true. So I got to try the P75 with a lot of power amps, and it works really well with all the power amps I tried. I don't recall coming across a case where I felt the match is not good. So that's why you see a lot of capacitors in it. You don't see this in other preamps. Next, if you're after more decay in your system, meaning the notes linger a bit longer, the P75 will deliver. So imagine a triangle go ding, and if it's extended, ding. But you know, I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. Extended decay adds space and depth, okay, making your listening room feel more like a concert hall than a living room. So with the TS A, the amplifier, 75, it already has a big sound stage. So the P75 doesn't make it wider, but it adds more depth and a bit more air. Now with any other normal amp that does not have air, like 80% of them, the P75, this will add air to your soundstage and width of to your soundstage. Now, if you prefer a sound that leans warm with softened edges, but all the details intact, then the P75 is for you. That's the magic of the Bumblebee capacitor combined with careful circuit tuning. I intentionally dial back the sharpness and precision in favor of a more inviting, enjoyable listening experience. Finally, if top-notch support is a priority for you, then it's another reason to choose P75. Comes with a 2-year warranty and customer service that actually answers your email and calls. So who isn't this for? If you crave lightning fast, razor sharp sound, this preamp might not be your cup of tea. See, the Bumblebee capacitor I chose is a double-edged sword. While it brings warmth and smoothness, it doesn't deliver the ultra-fast attack that some listeners want. To clarify, the Bumblebee capacitor in the TS P75, they're not from like the old times. They're not the vintage relics that has a lot of issues. These are modern version made by Jupiter in the USA. So Bumblebee, the original known as Black Beauty, are famous among audiophiles and guitar enthusiasts for their warm vintage character. So the Bumblebee, the Jupiter one, captured that spirit. So that's why it gives the TS P75 a sound that's slightly romantic and slightly smooth, not veil, but smooth. In the sense that the edges are softened, not razor sharp. If you prefer a more analytical sound, then yeah, this voicing may not appeal to you. But, there's a but. What to do if you bought the TS P75, you love it, but wish it had a bit more sharpness? There is a solution. All right, I'm gonna get roasted for this. Use the Galion P200 cable and you gain about 5 to 10% in sharpness. If you need the sharpness, email me. And for the first, I don't know, 50 clients, if you don't hear any difference and want to return it, I'll cover shipping both ways, no restocking fee. Your risk is 0. However, before you say, hey man, if my risk is 0, for sure I'm gonna ask for it. Be careful because I have a story to tell you. So I have an audio buddy, Frederick, who told me he needed some panels to treat his room. Now I have a lot of them at my warehouse, but they're GIK acoustics, so they're not cheap. One day Frederick dropped by my warehouse to borrow them. Just before he took the panels, he was smart and asked how much they are. I told him it wasn't cheap, but since it was just sitting in my warehouse, he could borrow it for as long as he wanted. Guess what? He said no. Because he knew that once he tried it and liked it, he's not going to give it back. And we'll have to eat instant noodles for months just to pay for it. So unless you really need that extra sharpness, don't ask for it. Otherwise, man, your wallet may hate you for it. Now, I prefer smoothness, so for me, the standard cable is just right. Okay, some of you might be worried about tubes. However, the small tubes used in a preamp are very low maintenance compared to the large power tubes. So these small tubes, man, they don't die. They rarely die. And if they do, 20 bucks to change the tube. And the best part, you don't even need to buy a stem. Just plug and play, not plug and pray. So a couple of quick notes before I wrap up. Number one, make sure you always keep the cover on, or else you might hear static. Number two, don't judge the sound right out of the box. The TS P75 needs at least 1 or 2 days to break in. And it's going to sound bright in the beginning, it's going to sound a bit harsh, but after 2 days, you'll be like 90% of the way. And I'll finish with a story, okay? So after the preamp received all my audio buddies' approval in Montreal, see, I live in Canada, I brought it to one of my audio buddies in Toronto, like the next city. Now, he was suitable for evaluating the preamp because he has never heard any of my sample. So he has no idea, no preconceived expectation, nothing. And after powering up for a few minutes, he said, darn man, this thing is in the same league as his $4,000 brand name tube amp. Well, adjusted for inflation, it's probably $6,000 today. He even admitted that in some respect, the TS P75 outperformed his own. Now, I was happy to hear that because that was my original goal when I started working on the TS P75. And when he said that, I'm like, okay, that's it. I've achieved my goal. And I tell you, man, for the longest time, Mr. Kenta would not allow me to bring the TS P75 to market because we did many samples and he said, man, they're not good enough. So his point was that Galion, every product that hits the market must be wow. And I'm glad I listened to him and spent the extra time on improving the P75 because I hope, I wish, and I pray that many of you will find it wow, just like the TS A75. All right, so till next time.